Welcome to the Chris Hanna Show. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Chris Hanna Show. Today I'm going to be talking about interviews, and there are some fundamental aspects that are important as we talk about job interviews. And I think one of the things that gets often overlooked is the question portion of the interview. You know, at the end of an interview where the hiring manager, HR representative, asks the candidate, do you have any questions for us? Well, far too often I hear many different people say, no, I got no questions, or I think I'm good. That frustrates me to no end, and I've hired hundreds of people throughout my career, but it's crazy to think that people just come to an interview and don't have any questions because they forget that the interview is a two-way street. Yes, we as the interviewers want to ask the candidate a bunch of questions to figure out if they're the right fit. But it goes the reverse way too, that the interviewee has to be asking questions of us to know whether this is the right fit for them, because you want to make sure it's a match on both sides. So there are some questions that I think are really important that people need to ask in an interview so that they get the insight and the knowledge that they need to know if this is a position that's worth accepting, should they be offered that role. I covered these and others in my ebook, Your Definitive Guide to Prepping for an Interview, that's available on chrishanna.ca as well. But I want to give you a top 5 list of these interview questions that you should always ask in an interview. Number 1, what are the priorities that will need to be addressed immediately in this position? If you're successful to a role, you're going to want to know, how is this role important to the organization? What are you going to be doing out of the gate after maybe some period of training? Because hopefully there is some training that's in place. What are going to be the tasks, the projects, the goals, ultimately the priorities that this position is going to be responsible for? Now, you might get a semblance of that in the job description, but it's really good to hear from the hiring manager perspective what they prioritize. It'll tell you a lot depending on what they say. Whatever they say as their first answer to that question is going to tell you really what do they value the most overall. And that could either excite you because that is something that you know you're strong in and you can provide a ton of value, or it might concern you. They might be more focused on an area of the role that you don't either have a strength in or you don't particularly enjoy. I've had people over the years where they have asked this question and I've answered, especially in people leadership roles where I've talked about how important it's going to be that they coach their team. And I've had that same candidate then say, ooh, I'm not really interested in doing coaching. But I'm like, well, this is a supervisor or a leadership role that you've applied to, and you're not interested in coaching. This is the primary priority of this position. So then I instantly know more as the hiring manager, but then they also know, hey, this might not be the role for me. I thought it was something else. So there's an opportunity just to clarify the expectations of the role as the candidate if you ask this question to whoever's interviewing you. Whenever possible, I think the next question should also be asked. It might come up naturally, but if it doesn't, it's a good question to ask. And that is, how long was the previous person here and why did they leave? With this question, you're ultimately trying to figure out, is this a new role or is this replacing someone? And why did someone leave? Did someone leave this position after only a few months? Were they in it for years? Did they get promoted or did they get fired? Were they not successful in this role for a variety of reasons? Is this a position where it's really challenging? Maybe you can't be as successful. Maybe there's disagreements that happen between the leader and this person that you might be replacing. You want to find some intel on why is there this vacancy that they're trying to fill? Maybe they're a growth organization. They're going through a tremendous amount of change and there's so many new positions that they're adding. Well, that's great to know as well. Because then you know that when you get in there, there's an opportunity for you maybe to grow and evolve your role or get promoted in some period of time as well. So you want to gain some of this competitive intelligence to understand, why does this role exist? And is there an opportunity for me to use this information in the right way? Or are they telling you something that's going to maybe scare you off? Maybe this role is a lot harder than what it reads on the job description. Now, if you are interviewing with what could be your potential next leader, there's an opportunity also to ask this question, which I think is incredibly powerful. Tell me about your management style and how you bring out the best in your employees. You want to know if the person that you are going to potentially be working with is a micromanager. Are they someone who's more laid back? What are their expectations? How do they like to lead people? Because your leader can play a huge role in your overall engagement and satisfaction. They play a massive factor in the employee experience in general. But how is that management style going to work with you? I know for myself, when I've asked this question before in the past, I have been always wondering about is whether someone's going to be a micromanager or not. Because that style just doesn't work for me. But by asking this question, it tells you a lot. They might answer more specifics about how they like to follow up, what their expectations are on communication. So you need to ask this question to know what you might be getting yourself into. When I used to apply for positions, I would ask this question, and there were times where I turned down roles when offered to me because I knew that I would not be a good fit with that potential leader. Now, you know that sometimes the leader might change over time, but maybe they don't. Maybe you're stuck with that leader for a number of years. And can you live every day in an environment where you don't get along with the person in terms of their style and the approach that they have in terms of leading you? It's a question you have to ask yourself. Another question, this one I love, that I think is so important to ask as part of an interview is, what types of people tend to excel here? When you're working in an organization, whether it's in person or it's virtual with today's remote work that we have, you need to know, what is a team like that you're going to be working with? It doesn't have to be the team that you're immediately part of, but what is the organizational group like? Are there like-minded individuals to yourself? Or what are the key characteristics that are required to be successful and to excel at that business? Maybe you'll find that there's some similarities to who you are and what you can bring to the table, which is fantastic. Or maybe they are traits that you don't possess. Now, if you're self-aware and you are willing to be, I would say, adaptable, maybe that's something that you can realize, hey, I have some shortcomings in this area, but there's an opportunity for me to improve this if I was successful to this position. But maybe you decide, oh, if this is what's required of me to be successful, maybe I'm not willing to put in the time. I've asked this question before in previous interviews, and one time I got an answer back saying, well, people who are successful here are people who are willing to put in more time than is needed. Everyone gets paid for 8 hours, but people who are really successful are people who put in 10, 12, even 14 hours a day. And I thought that was insane. I don't want to put so much hours into this job each day. Like, to me, it doesn't seem like that's efficient, it's effective, and the expectations are unrealistic. That's a quick way to burn out. When I asked the question about how long somebody was in the role and why did they leave, they said that the hours didn't work for them and the work-life balance wasn't for them, but they did that to themselves. So I'm like, well, no, they didn't do it to themselves, because you set that expectation that people who excel, the people who work long hours, I want to have some sort of work-life balance. So maybe this is not the role for me. Ultimately, I turned down that position when I was offered it, but you need to ask those questions about what is the characteristics that they value the most in people and why they think they'll be successful. And then the last question that I like to ask is a personal one for the person who I'm interviewing. It could be an HR representative or recruiter. It could be the hiring manager themselves. But I've always asked this question because I think it gives some great insight, because it also lowers their guard. And the question is, how long have you been in here? The question is, how long have you been here with your organization? Why do you stay? It's a great way to understand what it is that matters most to them. Now, you can tell when some people are asked this question of whether they're truthful or not too, based on maybe their body language or how they talk about it. But like, how genuinely do they feel as part of the culture? If they are the representative trying to hire and bring new talent into an organization or into a new team, how positively do they speak about it? Do they give you the truth of why they're still there? You can tell a lot about a culture by asking this question of whoever's interviewing you, and whether this is a culture in an environment that you want to be part of or not. I think if you ask some combination of these 5 questions in your next interview, you'll be more prepared, you'll have better insight and knowledge into what the environment is really truly all about and whether you want to be part of that environment or not. Again, remember, interviews are a two-way street. It's not all about the employer just asking you, the candidate, what they're after. It's about you finding out whether you want to be part of that group or not. Can this be a role that works well for you? Those are questions you need to find out. So again, top to bottom, 5 questions I think that are so important to ask in an interview. Number 1, what are the priorities that will need to be addressed immediately in this position? Number 2, how long was the previous person here, or why did they leave, if that's applicable? Number 3, tell me about your management style. How do you bring out the best in your employees? And number 4, what types of people tend to excel here? Number 5, how long have you been here? Why do you stay? You ask these questions, you've got a tremendous opportunity to learn a lot about the organization or the opportunity available, and ultimately decide whether it's the right fit for you or not. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Chris Hannah Show. As always, the latest episodes are available to listen and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow The Chris Hannah Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter for more resources and solutions, including blog posts, toolkits, ebooks, speaking sessions, and more. Visit chrishannah.ca today. We look forward to connecting again with you soon for another episode of The Chris Hannah Show.